Good afternoon. We'd like to call this meeting of the Alternative Educator Preparation Application Review Committee to order on Thursday, February 20th, and it is 1:34 in the afternoon. Can we call the roll, please?
Chair Peasley.
Present.
Member Garcia. Member Aragon.
Present.
Member Reedy.
Present.
Member Robledo. Sorry, one more time. Member Robledo.
Present.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. So what we'd like to do to start this, we would like to start with the elementary application, and we will be going through each of the rating items, and the committee will be able to ask questions. When you come up to speak to the committee, if you would please say your name and your position and the organization. Thank you. And Catcher.
Yes, Madam Chair and members, very briefly, a couple things. One, for call of the public, we haven't received any request to speak slip, so we can move past that. The other, I just want to mention on the record that Member Garcia did contact us beforehand and said that she couldn't make it due to some extenuating circumstances. And then the third was, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, ordinarily we provide the applicant like a quick 15 minutes to no more than 15 minutes to kind of give a quick overview of their program. And I think they have something prepared if you'd like to do that first and then run through the applications.
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you.
Okay. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly LaPratt. I'm Dean for the College of Education at Grand Canyon University. And so just thank you for this opportunity to present. It really is this team behind me that is going to showcase this program. And I just really wanted to highlight the collaborative component and how the teacher candidate is supported and surrounded by all of these stakeholders. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Allison Mattingly to come up and tell her, you can introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Allison Mattingly. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Professional Development for Glendale Union High School District.
And within the application, we had local education agencies involved, but so Allison's really representing that stakeholder group today for you. Lindy Gaudiano is next.
Hi, afternoon. My name is Lindy Gaudiano. I'm the Director of Academic Programs for the College of Education at Grand Canyon University.
Yeah, thank you.
Lindy, any of the coursework from Grand Canyon University, that curriculum aspect and or instructional aspect, she can answer those deep questions for you in that stakeholder group. And then we have Carol Lippert.
Hi, good afternoon, committee. I'm Carol Lippert. I'm the Executive Director for K-12 Outreach and Support, and I'm with Grand Canyon Education, which is the education service provider associated with Grand Canyon University. I can answer any questions about the professional development and coaching pieces of the model.
And then last but not least, Dr. Marjane Gilpatrick, also from the Grand Canyon University team.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I'm Marjane Gilpatrick, and I'm the Associate Dean for Outreach, Research, and Development at GCU.
And where Dr. Gilpatrick's expertise really comes in for us here is she is that great connector. When you have a model like this, you really need someone that's going to make sure that all of these moving parts are seamless and that we don't have any gaps within that kind of collaborative space. So without further ado, we'll go on to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as the LEA representative, I get the opportunity to speak about the first portion of the process. And so it would always start with us at the district level And we would go through, and once we found amazing applicants that either already work with our district or somebody that just becomes very interested in education and already has a degree, then we would work with them in the process of starting through looking at their degree, looking at helping them with the fingerprint process, looking at the NES test that would be appropriately connected to what they're looking to teach and what they've already got that subject knowledge matter expertise of, and then start with a letter of intent for our district. And so really we're excited about the opportunity. We have a great group of people that work in our support staff positions or that come to us on a yearly basis, just really looking for an opportunity to want to be able to teach and get in the classroom right away and work with that support. And so that would be our role at the initiation of it all. Thank you.
You know, if y'all come up closer, it might,
We're getting our steps in today.
okay, or you can do that, that's fine.
Getting our steps, it's good. I hope this doesn't, I'm going to move this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm one of those people that has to type everything out. So if you look at the graphic up there, we're going to be talking next about the Summer 1 portion of the pathway. And as you can see in the graphic, a major portion of the pathway activities here are carried out by Grand Canyon Education's Canyon Professional Development Team. And as I said earlier, just as a reminder, GCE is the education service provider for GCU. And I did want to express how excited we are for this opportunity to partner with our local education agencies and the College of Education to round out what I think is a pretty strong teacher development pathway. So in Summer 1, teachers will begin their learning experience with a week-long intensive boot camp. The documentation provided within the application details how the Intasc Standards will be addressed throughout the pathway. The PD component of the pathway is designed to move teachers from level 1 to level 3 over the course of the entire pathway. This begins before the school year even starts with this boot camp experience. Past participants in our boot camp have shared that the introduction gave them a foundational understanding of things like educational acronyms, lesson planning, policies and procedures, formative and summative assessment, and of course professional expectations that go with being a professional educator. One participant in particular shared his appreciation for the course, stating, "I am so thankful that my administration supported my attendance. Without this experience, I would have had no idea what was being discussed at our back-to-school meetings." The boot camp is supported throughout the remainder of the year via additional Saturday professional development meetings and one-on-one coaching sessions. The content of these PDs as we move through the year will be developed in conjunction with our LEAs and in conjunction with our College of Ed so that we can develop a really personalized experience for each of the pathway candidates. So as each of the professionals share their insights into candidate strengths and weaknesses, the Canyon PD expert, or GCE expert, will use these insights to guide coaching sessions and Saturday PDs. Also during Summer 1, you will notice that our candidates are enrolled in Classroom Engagement and Management. This is an online continuing education course for our teacher candidates that will really, I think, set them up for success as they begin into Semester 1. So Lindy Gaudiato is going to talk to you a little bit about Semester 1.
Hi again. For Semester 1, as Carol stated before, our students now have an understanding that this is a fully community feel, right? So they're going to have the participation of their LEA, and then they're going to have a group of students that are either within their own district or other districts that they are going to move through this pathway with together. So for Semester 1, they had the Canyon PD, and then they're going to move on to additional College of Education coursework. They'll have their first informal observation, and that's through GCU and one of our representatives to go to their site, meet with them, watch them teach. They'll have 2 Saturday boot camps and 2 coaching sessions through GCE. They'll then meet with their GCU assigned supervisor, and again, that's when they're going to just meet with that person to move through that informal observation. This is where they're also going to have that structured English immersion course. And again, to expand upon the classroom engagement and management course, where they're learning what they're going to need in their own classroom, they're gaining those strategies, they're going to then expand on that with ESL and work with those students in that population who might have additional learning needs.
So I have a question. The 2 Saturday boot camps and 2 coaching sessions is that the same day or is that 4 different? days?
So it would be designed to be 4 different days.
Okay.
So again, the understanding would be we'll be working with the College of Education supervisor, we'll be working with the LEA mentor, so that as they progress through the semester, if they're noticing any difficulties, if they're noticing any areas that each candidate needs any additional coaching on, we would go in and do that one-on-one coaching specifically designed to target those areas that of need.
Okay, thank you.
The second semester would be very similar path that the first semester is conducted in. So the local education agency will conduct their formal evaluation. We will continue with another 2 Saturday boot camps and 2 additional coaching sessions, another informal observation by our university faculty supervisor. And then they'll also be taking their Introduction to Special Education course, which is another 6-week course that they'll be engaged in. And that's the SPED 500 teacher education course that they'll be taking. So again, as Lindy and Carol have mentioned, this will be a very collaborative process where the faculty supervisor from GCU will be in touch with the teacher candidate as well as the coach to determine how we can support that teacher candidate to make sure that they're being successful and effective in their classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
And look at this, the year flew by.
Yeah.
We're to summer 2. So in the second summer, I do want you to notice throughout that we've combined this pathway to be encompassing of both the elementary and the secondary application. You will notice that there are different coursework for the continuing teacher education. You'll see that very clearly in summer 2 with the elementary and secondary foundational and adolescent literacy courses. So we close this one with a final boot camp, again, a week-long boot camp that hopefully, by this point, our professional developer will really know and understand these candidates, really understand where their strengths and weaknesses are at so that we can take that final week and push them to the mastery of the standards that we had identified as those that would be important to cover during PD. We'll use, to do this, the data collected throughout each of these experiences, reflections provided by the candidates themselves as they will be doing professional learning journals as a required portion of the activities with the professional learning. And I really want to emphasize here that this pathway is truly intended to be a collaborative process between the LEA, GCU, GCE, and the candidate. So as we are developing professional development, as we are making sure we're doing these coaching sessions, we really want to make sure that we are identifying what they need and providing them in time what they need so that they can progress successfully and ultimately have a successful experience in that first year with their students and so that their students will also achieve successful outcomes even while they're engaged in all of the coursework. So that kind of gives the overview there. I think we have a second slide. Lindy, did you want to talk about the competency piece of it?
So the competency pathway, this is something we had discussed before with our first submission. We like to say that it takes about 10 months for our students to complete the full program, and that's because that's centered around that academic year. So as you've seen with that visual, we like them to start beforehand, get that community sense, and then move through their academic year with the support of GCE, GCU, and then of course their LEA, and that's going to take about 10 months when they round it out with that final boot camp and that final week. In terms of the 24-week piece, that's just the completion of the 4 6-week online GCU courses. For the district commitment, we'd like them to complete a minimum of 70 days, and that's that day amount that candidate's the teacher of record in their own classroom. The professional development or induction hours will come next, and those are listed there as well.
Absolutely. So a little more detail about the district commitment of that. Absolutely, we would have them contracted for that first year, so they would be teacher of record for at least those 70 days. For the professional development side at the district level, we would go through, have them start with our induction program, or many school districts called the mentoring program. I'll speak specifically to my district. That is a 2-week program where it's intensive, that they're going every day and working with mentor teachers that they would connect to that would be actually on their campus. class, and so they would get to know them on an individual basis, spend 2 weeks going through topics such as EI, classroom instruction, classroom management, board policy, safety and connection to students, developing relationships, anything that any first-year teacher could always use some growth in, no matter what program they've gone through. And then additionally, they would stay connected to that mentor teacher throughout that first year, where they would attend weekly meetings with the mentor. That mentor would be going into their classroom so that they would get observations from not only the administration on their site, but the mentor teacher they work with, along with the GCU and GCE support within that. They would attend the district level workshops and get the support on the curriculum level of it as they work with our district level curriculum coordinators. And all of that would be wrapped into the district level commitment to provide professional development for those new teachers.
I have a quick clarifying question on that.
Absolutely.
I know you represent your LEA.
I do.
And so this may be more of a GCU question.
Okay.
Is there a standard district commitment in terms of the content and or expectations for the professional development and or induction responsibilities for each LEA?
Yes, when we first started, we drove that with the Intasc Standards and built it to that. And part of that is like the MOU, or the affiliation agreement with the district, that they will commit to these things and at that minimum, so that we know that they're supported. What does look a little different is their evaluation system in Alhambra Elementary School District might look a little different than the one at Glendale Union High School District. And they will use their evaluation, which is why we coupled on top of that a GCU informal evaluation as well, so we can monitor it through the end. But we had to set those minimums and those development hours, and they have to commit to those.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a question?
Can you, to go back to your comments, one of the things I'm struggling with here is you're saying that there's a minimum of requirements to work with an LEA, but I don't know what those requirements are other than what's here. Can you give us an example of what those requirements are? Do you have a document that you might be able to share with us that shows that an example MOU?
Yeah, that's what I was going to speak about. So thank you for that opportunity. Towards the end of the application, we have the application for the candidate. That also then is a checklist for each LEA. And that can be found under the application for the Canyon Leap to Teach candidate. And that then details what we'd like each LEA to commit to as they move forward with the collaborative.
You said this was under the forms for application for the student.
It's just where it fit best in the application.
Okay.
And on that form, that's again that commitment between the candidate for the actual program and then their district as well. And that's where they then are agreeing to those commitments as well.
Okay.
Did you find the application?
I remember going over it. So there was a document that you filled out if you were going to be applying to the program. That's correct, yes?
Yes.
Application. It's on page 10.
Okay.
So basically, you give this document to your LEAs.
I can't find the page.
Yep, so this is that contract really between the candidate who's going to be moving through as a teacher of record, their LEA, GCU, and then GCE. And this lists out their commitments and their requirements for the pathway.
So I'm seeing 4 bullet points here. Arizona School District Private Charter School will recommend candidates for the Canyon Leap to Teach pathway. That's one of the requirements. Provide a copy of the contract or letter of intent. Assign a mentor teacher. Require mentor qualifications, a valid standard professional license, minimum 3 years teaching experience, etc. Notify GCU immediately if the candidate has unsatisfactory progress or is dismissed from employment. Those are the only commitments you ask for from an LEA?
Those are the standards, but if you'd like, we could definitely expand upon that.
Like what I'm asking is, how many professional development hours do you expect? What should those professional development hours consist of?
So we will be working collaboratively with the LEAs because each LEA will determine what their required professional development topics will be and so forth. So we will be working collaboratively with the LEA to support that professional development. So at minimum, as we've described over there, so it'll be 268 professional development hours that they'll be committing to for the academic year.
But that's through GCU.
That's through GCU, though. 4 courses, 2 boot camps, 2 Saturday boot camps, 4 coaching experiences.
So for the district commitment, again, each district will be different, but
But what's the minimum? Like, what happens if you have a district that's like, we're not going to do anything?
Yeah. Well,
Like, what's the like? Yeah.
right.
yeah.
Right, but I mean, like, what if a district says, we would love to partner with you all. This is what our professional development looks like for new teachers, and you all look at it and you're like, that we don't think that's enough.
So
Like, what would that minimum be?
What you'd be able to see if you're able to look through the different documents that outline the Intasc Standards,
Yeah.
you'll see which Intasc Standards that we are covering through our professional development. So the expectation is that the district is covering the other ones.
Okay.
So I outlined in here, so if you look at Standard 1, for example, you'll see that we're not covering all of the Standard 1 topics. The remainder of those Standard 1 topics would be expected to be covered by the district. So we would want some sort of document that says that they've covered these things. In particular, we will not be covering Standards 4 and 5. Those are mainly content area specific standards. And so the understanding as we've developed this pathway with our districts and the partners that have come to the table is that any content area specific, they will need to be
That
in
needs to
charge
be
of
filled out with
providing
the
the support for that, the professional development for that, the methods specific to that. Is that what you're looking for? So,
Yeah.
okay, and we can make that certainly more clear in what we ask the district to sign off on.
Right.
But the expectation is that if it's not already included in here under what we're covering for professional development, then that's what the district responsibility is in terms of the Intasc Standards and what they cover.
Okay. So just to summarize, to make sure that we're on the same page here, your expectation of districts is that they're going to provide a certain number of professional development hours. Those hours may vary, but at the very least, they must be able to meet the Intasc standards.
Yeah.
Very specifically, you're leaving out content as a focus because you're expecting your LEA partners to fill those components in.
Correct, and because any teachers that are coming in that are teaching a specific content area will have already had to have passed their content area NES assessment, so to show that they have the content knowledge.
Right.
So the standards that go with things like, the specific methods for science
Yeah.
or social studies, that kind of thing, they'll work with that at their district.
How do you know if that programming is any good? Like now in the planning phases?
Well, I mean, we've specifically, I think, partnered with districts that have a record of success with their students and
Okay.
with their outcomes. So, one, I think that record of success speaks for their ability to help their teachers achieve in content areas.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know, do you have other things that you do with the student teaching whenever you partner with them for student teaching or anything like that?
So I can come in here from even from a historical perspective. Grand Canyon University, if you graduate from one of our licensure programs,
Yeah.
if you struggle during your first year of teaching or leading, at no cost to the district or the student, if you struggle, we'll provide support. And that's been going back even to when I was a graduate as a guarantee statement. We call it the College of Ed Promise now, and we hold to that. So to that point, in some regard, in any program, even our approved licensure programs and teacher prep, I don't always know what my students are going to get when they go out in those districts. And so we have to be able to prepare them to be that second year teacher, or we have to be able to prepare them to know that they have the support for us to help them. We often provide, Carol's team does an amazing job of helping our districts with their professional development and those needs and guiding those. And so in addition to offering this for our teacher candidates, they're providing that also to our districts already.
Okay.
so they're getting it not only from a school perspective, but now they're getting it from an individual perspective.
So you said that GCU supports LEAs in creating professional development. Okay.
Yes, very much so.
All right.
And
Just as an aside, I
Yes.
think one of the things I'm really struggling with this application is it's just very vague to me, and like you're giving me a lot of details now that sound great that I wish would have been in here, because I think that would have changed a lot of my initial scoring.
And I will tell you, it was
Yeah.
a challenge for us as well in order to provide exemplars, like
Yeah.
exemplar forms and documents,
Right.
because every district nuances a little bit differently. And so how do you pack this in? And we certainly probably could do a better job of helping to kind of realize that. But it was a challenge in writing it as well,
Right.
in terms of those kind of details. When you want a model that is held to high standards, which I think it absolutely is, and candidates are supported all the way around, but yet you need some flexibility within this local education agency to grow their own, because we want them to grow their own. We know when they grow up in that community with that group of teachers and they are connected and they become the bobcat or the tiger, they will stay. And so that actually was the impetus of trying to start this in terms of kind of a grow your own. How could we get into communities, help people want to be teachers, and yet they might not be ready for a master's degree program yet? So that true post-bac, lots of support, hand-holding, lots of teams guiding you through, because it's not easy. Our AZ Alt Path intern program that goes into a master's, it's not easy. You have to do a master's program to do that and also teach your first year. It's very difficult. So it has that same spirit. And it is a challenge to give that flexibility and ownership.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to always keep in mind too is really designed, my team's going to be in their classroom for 4 coaching sessions throughout the year. The GCU university supervisor will be in throughout
Plus
the
their
year.
instructor, their course instructor is involved. Yeah.
If we're noticing problems, we're going to be having communication right away to support that teacher in the way that they need to be supported. So, I might say that the Intasc Standards 4 and 5 aren't in here, but if my coach is in there and they see that they're having problems with math instruction, of course they're going to be helping them with that instruction, because really what we're about is having successful outcomes for kids, right? And so we're going to help get the teacher what they need, the information that they need, and we'll work with the LEA to do it. So
then understanding that that each district has a different induction process, some districts have days for professional development during the year, other districts don't. Can you tell me a little bit more about your MOU? Is it is the MOU standard between GCU and any district, or is it tailored, modified for the different programs, PD for the different districts?
It's standard in the idea that there are these minimum number of professional development hours, or that you're going to cover standards 4 and 5. It's nuanced in that it looks a little different for Alhambra Elementary School District than it does for Glendale Union High School District. And so it's nuanced. Their professional development, their release days at elementary and secondary look a little different. So there are those flexibilities, but GCU, we can't customize every MOU and all of that. So it's a standard affiliation agreement, I would call it.
One of the things I think would have made the application stronger was to have linked a copy
Like
of
a copy of
yeah.
an MOU. I can certainly,
Right.
get you that. I mean, even within, just those
Yeah.
standard
I
agreements.
mean, had I known that
Yeah.
districts would have been responsible for certain aspects.
gotcha.
I mean, I know you said in there we're working with these districts to tailor the experience. Sounds great.
Well, even in
yeah.
the IR process, if you
Right.
will, it takes 3 signatures, not just 1.
Right.
So that's different as well.
Yeah.
So I might think it's great because they have the transcripts and they
Mm-hmm.
went through the program. But if they didn't successfully complete that first year teaching experience to the district and their induction, and they're proficient in their evaluations, it's not going to get that signature if they're not going to be able to be hired. And I, from an IHE and from a dean's perspective, I have to tell you, I have been very impressed with our school districts and the work that they're doing in professional development, building induction programs, even going so far as differentiating their induction. And they've had to because of what they're faced with in terms of number of emergency certified teachers, and they're a very different place for induction than a student that graduated from our licensure program. Sure. And so the work that they're doing, the forms they submitted, the exemplars, I cannot speak highly enough in those, because we took this and built this program with a lot of input. Multiple districts, stakeholder groups coming together, looking at the standards. Where does this meet? Who is best to serve this standard? And they blew me away. They're doing above and beyond what I think is anybody's minimum. So,
Okay, thank you. Are you finished at this point? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Daisy, are you still with us?
Yes. I think overall my concern is the same thing. I think GCU is the one that is applying for program approval, and so when you have no control of what the LEAs are presenting the candidates, it becomes a little worry because it is going to be different in each district, and you have no control of that. So I think that's my concern with this model.
Yeah, right, and it requires this committee and then the state board to have a leap of faith. That I agree with you. I agree with you, Josh, that MOU would have been so helpful, because then we wouldn't have had. I know I had a lot of wonderings too. So what is the district going to be providing? Because we could see your coursework. And we could see the GCU side. What I wanted to see more of was the other. So,
one thing that I also think would be helpful, and I'm going to you spoke to it, Dean. What was your last? Kimberly. Kimberly, you spoke to it, that you had the way that you described it, you had all of these different folks coming to the table and figuring out which standards were going to be taught in which learning opportunity. I think what would have strengthened this application is a rich scope and sequence for all of those. So one of the questions I had originally asked is a schedule for the boot camp, and some information about what was going to be taking place. And although we got a table with a general description of the boot camp, what would have been helpful is to see for this course, here's which standards are going to be addressed in this course versus this boot camp versus the description of 30 hours of professional development, because it sounds like you've had those rich conversations. So just articulating those for each of those entry points of learning, having that articulated in a scope of sequence, and then here are the district requirements coupled with that MOU would have been really helpful for me to see how all of the standards we were asking to be addressed would be addressed in the programs.
Okay. All right. Are we ready then to start going through the application? The first area of rating is the areas of certification. In the elementary application, which is the one we're starting with, it does state that there will be, this is for an elementary education. Are there any questions from the committee on that one? The next area was financial stability. Were there any questions from the committee on that?
Comments? Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll let you do this one.
Okay.
I was just going to clarify that it's my understanding from the application for the elementary that the first cohort would be cost-free, 100%, but then after that it would be approximately $3,800 plus the tuition costs for the 4 courses. Is that correct?
yes. This came to us really from the LEAs kind of as a way or an idea to help grow their own and get highly qualified teachers in classrooms. Even saw this as a program that would help our subject matter experts who had the subject matter but hadn't had the teaching support, maybe coursework and so forth, to help realize that goal. And as such, President Mueller is passionate about trying to help that pipeline. And so he's committed to having this no cost to the first cohort.
And then after that, it's approximately $5,800.
Everyone else has left the call.
Oh, goodbye. About $5,800 then
Yes,
for the
approximately.
year.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order, do we have quorum right now?
Madam Chair and members, not right now. We can keep
talking.
having a discussion, and that's fine. I'll try to track Daisy down to get back.
Okay, try to track it down. Okay, thank you.
My concerns here, well, they're not really concerns. I think if I had no idea what GCU was, I would say the point of this portion of the application is to demonstrate financial solvency, that you're not going to close up shop 6 months into this and take a bunch of people's money with you. However, because I do know obviously I know what Grand Canyon University is. I've hired teachers to work in my school who are GCU graduates in the past. And so I'm assuming, however, that the institution, Grand Canyon University, is guaranteeing financial solvency for the program, and there's not going to be any issues of like closing up shop or anything like that 6 months into this and leaving your candidates out to dry.
No issues of closing up shop and leaving our candidates. We're absolutely committed to it. In fact, I can promise you that if President Mueller has his way, he will find a way. He is about, increasing accessibility to higher education and reducing cost, so that you will see this cost decline over time, not go up.
And just as an aside, one more time, is like to strengthen the application, I would just make sure to note that the program is funded and that it's, and it's financially solvent.
Okay, thank you. So then we go on to Standard 1, Learner Development.
I have questions.
Go ahead.
I have comments. So my comments here were about not understanding what the district's offering in terms of especially content. There are only 4 courses that your participants are required to attend, in addition to the other professional developments that you've described, but have not given evidence of like what's happening in those or what's occurring in those, other than some brief summaries. I compared your program to other post-baccalaureate programs in Maricopa County, NAU, in Yuma, their program, Scottsdale STEP program, which is about a 12-month program. One of the things I noticed about all of those programs is that they had much more courses, much more coursework. They had more coursework in learner development, the psychology of the child's brain, of how it develops. I saw more coursework in those programs for content for elementary teachers. So how does one teach reading? You have that, but you don't have how do I teach math as an elementary teacher? How do I teach science as a social studies teacher? How do I teach science and social studies? So my concern here is this enough coursework for these candidates to be successful? I understand now that you're hoping that the district will fill that in, but one of the pieces that I'm still missing is like, how do you know that they're doing that effectively? What is the minimum, content levels that you'll take? Those are my concerns here.
So when this pathway first started, we're trying not to drive it from a coursework perspective.
Okay.
There's a certain amount they absolutely have to do, but what we built the program around was a standards-driven model that had shared responsibility. And as we mapped that out on who was really the best to teach this and who was doing it, wanting them to have that job embedded, immersive, competency-based model, if you will. And but at the same time, shore that up and ensure that we had professional development along with mentoring, coaching, and again, all the lion's share work that the district is doing. And so I'm going to turn this over to Allison because she can really speak to how they're supporting that.
So I think first and foremost to point out that really applicants that we would be hiring to go through this program would be applicants that are coming in with a degree that connects to the content that they're going to teach. So of course I'm speaking from the secondary perspective of it, of the high school level, but so that way would be the first step that we would ensure some content knowledge. And then from our district perspective and our program, when we take our new teachers through the induction program, they specifically spend up to 2 days working with a district level curriculum coordinator so that they can get some content support. And that within that time, they're provided with the scope and sequence of the class, some guidance on what the curriculum will look like. And then, of course, for our district in particular, and I know the other districts that have participated in the meetings that we've discussed, we talk about the role of the mentor, the role of the department chair, the role of the professional learning community team that new teacher would be working with to help support them with that curriculum content throughout the year. And then we also, while we have our new teachers go through PD that's specific to first-year teachers, we also have them go through content-specific curriculum workshops so that they can continue to get that support and those best practices for teaching the level of content that they would be teaching.
Okay, thank you.
Member Robledo, could you please confirm that's you on the line?
Yes, that's me.
Thank you.
Member Reedy, you had a question?
I think Member Aragon addressed my primary concern with this one.
Right. So thank you for giving us the secondary explanation, which works because the applicants have to have a degree in their content area anyway. And I too had the same concerns about how the elementary teachers were going to be getting their content, except besides the reading. And then, as you explained, that's part of that agreement that we don't. It's not a part of the application process with the districts.
Yes, but even at the elementary level, they're requiring that they pass those content exams prior to, so that we know that they are coming in with that, plus a bachelor's degree. And our elementary school districts that we are working with are very PLC grade level, team driven. And so I would say they have that same level of support in their content area around those grade level bands for sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we can go on. Then, standard 2, learning differences. Any questions?
So there's going to be a theme throughout my feedback, and so in standard 2, I agree with all of the descriptions that were shared throughout the application. I think the work that the expectations that you have of the teachers or the candidates who are part of your program, I agree with them. I think they're the topics that need to be covered. So it says in here that this pathway provides ample opportunity for candidates, and that's throughout the program in order to experience those. I think, again, what would have been helpful is to see what are some of those ample opportunities. Where do those fall into the boot camps? Where do those fall into the I recognize and I appreciate the differentiation that coaching sessions would provide, and you may not have a scope and sequence for those because those will be differentiated based on where folks are falling on the standards. But for the other ones that are set, I think it would have been very helpful rather than general statements about having multiple opportunities and whether the district will provide or the GCE will provide, GCU in their course will provide. I think that would have been very helpful to clarify how the standards are addressed.
Member Aragon?
Same concerns.
Okay. Thank you. Member Robledo, if you have, I was going to say, just jump in.
Yes. So with this, with learning differences, it seems that there was a lot of focus on one particular group of students. However, there are other diverse students, there's diverse cultures, and I couldn't see enough evidence to support this standard. You also mentioned in there, you included as a resource culturally inclusive practices, the implementation guidance for local educational agencies. This document is actually no longer being used. This was shared back in November in the Inclusive and Equitable Practices Advisory Council. I'm not sure why the link is still available. It was my understanding that it was not going to be available anymore. And so I just wanted to make sure that you understood that.
We were really having a hard time hearing that feedback, so I'm not sure.
Right. Daisy, the quality of this call sounds like you're a little bit underwater. So can you go ahead, Catcher?
Madam Chair and members, Member Robledo, you could always punch up some of this stuff and provide it to me and afterwards, and we'll make sure that we distribute that. And I don't know, Member Aragon, if you had something.
I think she was. There was a couple of additional concerns I was going to point out in other places, but pulling up all of your syllabi, trying to click on individual links, looking at what some of the materials are that you were asking students to read. As a former special education teacher myself, there was not a lot, but there was a couple places where I was like, this feels a little bit dated, not current. A lot of the material was locked down by GCU as well, just because I'm not a student at GCU, so obviously I don't have credentials to access those things. But as a committee member, I wasn't able to review some of those things. And then there was a couple links that just didn't work. So like when I clicked on them, I'd get like a 404 not there. So those were just some like little pieces in the application that I was like, ooh, I can't really get I can't really see if the standard is being met here because I just can't access some of the links in the syllabi. Syllabi, is that right?
Yeah, syllabi. Syllabi.
For multiple courses, yes. All right. Are we ready to go to standard number 3?
Sure.
Learning environments. Comments? Any comments there?
It's just the same concerns about not being able to really fully immerse myself in the content that was being offered to students.
Member Robledo?
Yeah, again, I don't think that there was enough evidence to really meet the standard. At least I couldn't see it. And again, because I couldn't access the information.
Just for clarification, was
Go ahead.
it the resources for students? Was it the readings and was it the videos?
I clicked on every link in every syllabus, so yeah.
And those may be locked down, but you were able to then fully see the syllabus, correct?
I was able to fully see the syllabus.
Yes.
Okay.
It was what was in the syllabus.
Just for clarification.
And like I said, and so those things for me range from being great. A lot of the resources, I was like, that totally makes sense. That's totally current. Mm-hmm. Some stuff was a little bit old. Some stuff just didn't work, and then some stuff I couldn't access because I don't have credentials from GCU.
Okay. Yeah, and we can check on that too because it's owned by
Yeah.
GCE.
Okay, thank you.
The links that I want to thank whoever took the time to answer all of the questions. We were provided to those responses ahead of time. It was in that document too, where I tried it on 4 different devices and it said I had to update a browser. And so I went to 4 different, and I wasn't able to click on about half of the links on that particular document. I don't know if you all had the same challenges with that.
I did.
Okay.
I found that so that I couldn't see all the different individual elements of the
Correct.
course and their course activities. Right. All right, then. We'll go on to standard 4, content knowledge.
I think we've touched on it.
Questions? I think we've touched on that.
I think we've touched
and
on
the
that.
concern and the concerns there. Okay. Member Robledo, any questions?
No, you've already addressed the concerns.
Okay. Standard number 5, the application of content.
Same.
Yeah, just to reiterate, to make sure we're being specific, like one of your comments is this pathway teaches a variety of instructional strategies that engage candidates in real-world experiences that are applicable to their classrooms. However, and these are now my comments, the application in no way points to specific classroom experiences or assignments that would demonstrate that this standard has been met. Further, the syllabus listed do not demonstrate opportunities for honing the skill of execution of these skills that they are serving. And they might, the course might, I just don't see it demonstrated through, like I said, assignments or meaningful learning activities. A lot of the content appears to be very topical. In addition, the coursework does not mention how it would develop pedagogical approaches in math, science, or social studies at the elementary level, only literacy.
Member Robledo?
I think similar concerns. The concepts are just, this is a statement that was listed. It said concepts are embedded through the courses. That's a bit too vague for me of a statement. I would like examples of how those concepts are in fact embedded through the courses.
Okay, thank you. Standard number 6, assessment. Any questions there?
Just to clarify, I believe in your application you referred to, is it EL 5400 or 5100 here?
5100 for this one.
So you through ELM 5100 TE course, that is the course on literacy.
Correct.
Okay. So this course focuses on assessment of literacy. Okay.
Strategies and assessment.
Strategies and assessment. And that's just one component of the course, though, right? It's
Correct.
not
the
whole
full
course.
Nope, just one.
Okay. And then in your other courses, which aren't mentioned here, there are other aspects where assessment, I assume, is being talked about, the special education courses, the SEI courses. We also have, I saw in the syllabi there, more opportunities to discuss assessment and the kinds of assessment.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. What about assessment? Where do you talk about like instructor bias, cultural bias, things like that? Where are those things talked about?
So the majority of that content can be found in the ESL courses for both the
Okay.
secondary and the elementary. And that really is to just provide awareness for those students to not only have that non-biased students, but also to then those who they're working with as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Member Robledo, any questions?
With this one, I'm still not getting a clear picture of how all the indicators within the standard are going to be addressed through the PD. It almost seems like the how the candidates are going to master the standard is just not clearly identified for me. It just seems that there's a lot of material to cover in a short period of time. And so I'm concerned on the quality of instruction or the quality of how well these indicators are actually going to be addressed in the PD sessions.
Thank you. All right, we can go on to number 7, planning for instruction. Any questions there?
My understanding now that you will have planning as a main focus of the boot camps. Right. Okay. So yeah. So then going back to Member Reedy's original comments about like, yeah, what are the agendas for those boot camps? What topics are discussed? What are the outcomes, objectives? Would make the application much stronger.
Okay. Then Member Robledo?
Similar.
All right, thank you. Standard 8, instructional strategies.
And I think this is similar as well because there are no links to coursework here. So I'm assuming it's taking place in those other professional development opportunities. So I would have links to where that would fall in and what those content goals of those sessions would be.
Okay. Member Aragon, any questions?
Same.
Member Robledo?
No.
Okay. Standard number 9, professional learning and ethical practice.
So I appreciate that you provided a rubric that could be used to measure a participant's proficiency. Once again, though, there's no reference to any specific courses, individual assignments, exemplars or models, district learning activities, or other professional development where one could determine how a participant would grow in this standard.
Member Reedy?
I don't have anything further on that.
Member Robledo?
No.
Okay. Okay, standard number 10, leadership and collaboration.
I would have the same comments.
Right.
Although I do
Right.
want to, I do want to make mention, and this is the place in the application where you spoke to the GCU promise, I believe.
Yes.
And I do want to thank you on behalf of the candidates that you serve for providing that. I just wanted to, that's a huge commitment, and I just want to thank you on behalf of folks who hire candidates that you have that support in place.
And you deliver on that support, because I've appreciated that in my work in districts as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that.
That was good. Are there any other questions? That I think the one comment that I had is that, and perhaps the challenge is embedded within the standard itself, leadership and collaboration. The narrative provided the context and a lot of information about collaboration, but not the leadership piece. And I think that's not all that uncommon for applications that we've seen. And again, I think that's perhaps that the challenge for that is embedded in that standard as to what we're asking. These are the overall teaching standards, but what is it that we're really asking our first year teachers or our teachers who are acquiring the knowledge to be a teacher. So that was my one comment there. The next one, the application and review process. Were there any questions there?
So my concerns here are, you briefly described what's needed to enter the program, which is great. What is missing is there's the form that you provided later on to enter the program. If you could clarify for me, though, if I maybe missed it, the application does not describe how applicants are reviewed, what criteria would trigger admittance, and what criteria would trigger denying admittance into the LEAP program. And so I know what your application process is. I don't know what the review process is for candidates to make sure that they're, quality.
As a post-bac student for GCU, they would fall under the same admittance requirements as a master's degree student, and that would be a 3.0 in their bachelor's degree, and a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. And so they would go through that same application process to be a university student. In addition to that, though, that process doesn't even start unless there's a recommendation from the district. So earlier on, there's that intent of that this person has been identified as by them, who's been able to pass their content knowledge, who has their fingerprint clearance card, who they will be able to give a letter of intent. And so that foundation is there as well, so that you really have the two filtering application processes.
Okay.
But it starts with the district first,
Yeah.
and then they would have to meet the GCU.
Okay. Do you foresee a scenario where a district might recommend somebody they have
With a
all of the-
2.8?
Well,
Right.
there's that. But what if they have a 3.9? Maybe I don't know if there's there's a letter of intent or something that they write to GCU. I mean, what if they say something that's in that letter of intent that's completely incompatible with your values or with the professional standards of being a teacher? Like, do you see any scenarios where you would say, like, nah, actually, we would probably not deny this person because we just don't think they're right for the program or for the profession? Or is it just purely like a numbers and I have these letters sort of thing?
Well, it's twofold. Our admittance policy is not driven by, if you will, letters of recommendation. For us, we're about outputs as much as we are about inputs. But there are standards that you have to meet to go to the university.
Right.
And that's for any master's degree program or any post-bac program at the university. More often, if we see it, it's really in that I have the 2.0.
Okay.
I have the letter of
Yeah.
recommendation. I'm an amazing candidate. Can I get into your program?
Can I get okay.
In those cases, there is a policy within the university that they have that's called admitted with specifications. They are admitted to programs and they have a very limited period of time to demonstrate success.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Member Robledo, any questions?
No.
Okay, next item is the enrollment application forms. Any questions there? Member Robledo?
No.
Okay, go on to the next one. District and school participants. Any questions?
Once again, just for evidence's sake, if you could provide like a letter of intent from a district or an MOU and link it or provide it actually within the content, that would be helpful. Other than, I mean, what you did do is just like list certain districts, which is great, but that doesn't, and you clearly brought someone from Glendale today, but just
and to
linking
that point,
yeah.
that list were those folks that were in the room helping to develop this.
Great.
So that you knew that, but that would be an easy thing to get also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my comment, what I saw, that there needed to be evidence of interest or support, and just didn't see that. We just had that nice list. Okay, that's good. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Member Robledo?
No.
All righty. You're a trooper. We appreciate you. All right, our next one is explaining the structure and supervision of an evaluation of the school-based experience. Any questions?
I thought we were on length of time.
I'm sorry. Describing the length of time the candidate will be required to participate in the program.
Let me get back down there.
I just had the one question that I had that was answered earlier was what had happened to move it from 6 months of expectation to 10 months. And it's my understanding then that that's covered because of the 4 courses and the boot camp at the beginning and at the end, which now spread the program out over a 10-month school year. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Member Robledo?
No.
All right. Then the next one, the structure and supervision and evaluation of the school-based experience. Any questions?
Yes. So, in your application, you wrote, Canyon Leap to Teach candidates will have the opportunity to receive guidance and feedback from the LEA master teacher mentor who will work with the teacher on a weekly basis to provide timely and effective feedback that will allow for the teacher to not only evaluate but to adjust instruction immediately. So the questions I wrote down here are like, well, how will this happen? What approach will be used? Is there any sorts of approaches to coaching that you're prescribing from the districts? Are there rubrics, conversation guides, feedback forms that can be shown as evidence? I saw some of that here and there. Is there a handbook for the LEA master teacher? I saw a handbook with some requirements in there. How are they trained for the program? Is that purely on the district side? Is that through GCU? You described the number of evaluations, but I didn't see evidence for what the structure of those I saw some evidence of what the structure of the observations would look like through some of the forms. But I guess I'm just wondering, there just seems to be a little bit of a lack there. It seems to be a little too vague for me.
Well, I can speak on the perspective of the LEA. And so for the teacher, leader, or mentor that they'd be working with, those are more informal observations and feedback and conversation that they're working through. However, each of our schools have all of our new teachers go through regular yearly drop-ins with all administrators. And then, of course, they'll receive a full formal observation process from a certified evaluator as an administrator. That would be an administrator on the campus for first and second semester throughout that process.
Okay, thank you. We have Marjane coming. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our university supervisors from Grand Canyon University, they go through a professional development. Each of our supervisors, they go through several professional development sessions where we talk about supervising the GCU way. And they meet with the candidate, they meet with the cooperating teacher or the mentor teacher, and they, after each visit, there is a form that they fill out, and they collaboratively fill out together that are based on all the 10 Intasc Standards. So we sit down together. In fact, this morning I just was doing one with one of our student teachers. So it's very detailed, and we go through each of those standards, and we document what they're doing and what their areas of opportunities are.
So I think for the master teacher mentor and also the GCU supervisor, having links to the expectations and or training those individuals would provide examples, what they have to do in order to be qualified to be those master teachers, and then examples to the forms, I think would be very helpful.
Okay, yeah. I think we did mention in there that the master teacher will have to have minimum of 3 years of teaching experience
Yes.
and a master's
Those
degree.
are there.
Right.
Yes.
It
Right,
was there
so those were already, I think, listed in the
Right.
handbook, right? Yeah.
Yes, it was.
in the handbook, yes.
Member Robledo?
I think my concern here is the amount of time in between each observation. Do the candidates really have enough time to truly implement the feedback and to truly improve on their professional skills to be better teachers?
Thank you. And then our next one is forms. So where are we on the forms? Any questions on the forms?
Just that several of the forms were locked, so I couldn't access them. Handbook was available, and it did describe the program in more detail, outline participant and LEA master teacher basic requirements. The growth plan was also available, and that appeared to be adequate to me. But just that I wasn't able to review all of your links there just due to access, not having GCU credentials, things like that.
Fine. Any other questions? Member Robledo?
No.
Okay, the next one, staff roles, responsibilities, and credentials.
It's fine.
Any questions? No. Member Robledo?
No.
Okay, and then the next one, time to complete the program. We've had some comments already about the concern about that limited amount of time, and then this led to my question about, is this sufficient time? Is 70 days with a school or a district sufficient time to get in all of those evaluations?
So the program is really designed as a school year, full year program.
Sure.
But we also know that from a letter of intent perspective and hiring positions and mid-year, this first cohort's going to start at the beginning, but in a reality of a program and how it lives out, what is that minimum teacher of record time that we would have to ensure? So we modeled it after student teaching, that you would have that minimum of that 70, 75 days as teacher of record. However, if it takes 2 years,
Then it takes 2 years.
it takes 2 years.
Okay.
And so, but I could also maybe start out as a parapro and then do that 70 days the second semester and still be in the program and still doing the induction and still doing, but it gives some flexibility with that intent to hire as those needs change within a district, and also to allow that the student is not then, second semester needs are very different than first semester needs.
Right.
And so those of you that have been principals and have tried to wrestle with that in those positions and capitalizing on that, how can, again, just like our financial stability in a university and be able to support this program, how can the district also ensure these candidates can still complete the program in a truly authentic and real way and have those experiences? And sometimes as a district maybe interviewing them, they don't want them to be the teacher of record first semester, but I want them to be second semester. So again, to that point of flexibility in this program and to build it, but at the same time, as a dean, I have to be able to sleep at night, and I can't give this promise at the end if I don't feel that they're going to be prepared. We would go out of business, and I couldn't assure you financial stability if that were the case. So it was that balance between flexibility and meeting the standards and ensuring a high-quality program.
And I thank you for the explanation. That also speaks to the time that you've spent with the different districts and talking about their needs and their practices. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, then we'll go on to student success and evaluation tracking. Any questions?
More of a comment. This would be a great place to include how districts are ensuring proficiency on the Intasc standards that they're responsible for, just so that way it's very clear. You have it very detailed. You have it outlined very clearly about the observations pieces. I think it would be helpful to also see then how are you tracking progress on those progressions of standards that you provided.
Right. Does the district, how do you get the district's teacher principals evaluation?
How would they get it?
How does Grand Canyon get access to that?
Yeah, so of course, because we'd be working collaboratively with those applicants, then the administrator who's evaluating them, which would be the principal on all of our campuses for every first-year teacher, would then work with that teacher to make sure to give permission, of course, and then to work with GCU to hand over that. And those standards happen to be worked into our particular evaluation, so it connects, at least for our district.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Member Robledo, any questions on that?
No.
All right, then tracking and evaluation documents.
Double check your links.
All right. So, okay, there we go. Sample evaluation. Any other questions? Member Robledo?
No.
Okay, then we can go on to the last item was program success. Are there any questions there?
So my comments here were that you gave a brief overview of your internal review process. I didn't see student achievement, both academic or personal, mentioned in there.
Member Robledo?
There's mention of a scorecard, but I couldn't see a link to it or an example of what that looks like.
Right. Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a process I know intimately well. It's something that our team oversees. That internal process we did speak to, it's called a program review process. This is something that it's on a cycle. So every 3 months, a team that I work with and we have 3, we have 2, we have 6 going of one of different programs. We can provide an example of a scorecard, and that's that end of course surveys, the failure withdrawal rate, progression rates, all of that is listed there in a scorecard for each program. So I can definitely provide those most recent ones for elementary and for secondary then.
And if you could provide like minimum criteria that you would say this is acceptable.
Sure.
Versus, and this is not acceptable, and therefore the program could not continue.
Yep, it's listed there, so I can provide that for both.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much.
And so, again, to that point, not only from a program perspective, but a student progress perspective.
Sure.
As a university, you have to maintain those GPAs to get through and progress through the program. And so they would follow the same guidelines as our master's degree students, and they would have to have a 3.0 to graduate.
I think we're talking about different students.
Yep, okay.
I'm talking about students, the children in the classrooms. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see them mentioned. You're
talking about the K-12 students.
Exactly.
Yes. Right, okay. Then, where we are at this point, we'd like to take a recess, maybe about 10 minutes. I think at this point, then we'll tally, or until we get the scores tallied. Okay, thank you. No, I just want to go back over mine. Sure. you. Are we ready to get started again? Okay, let's reconvene. Catcher, could you give us the scores and what we're looking for and the meaning of it? Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair and members, so again, and this, we're just looking for the elementary scores.
elementary.
You want the elementary
Do we
scores
want to
now,
do
or
that,
do
or
you
we
want?
will do them all together at the end?
I think I would probably recommend doing them all at the end.
Okay,
if
we'll
only
do them
because
at
some
the
of it
end. I'm good with
overlaps,
that too.
if
Thank
that's-
you. Okay. My brain is compartmentalizing these days.
That's right.
So we're going to move on to the secondary. So the first area is the accreditation, the areas of certification. Are there any questions there?
Give me just a second to open up the.
Member Robledo, you're still with us, right? Tap one for yes and two for no.
I'm still here.
Did you have any questions about the areas?
No.
Okay.
So essentially, at the secondary level, you're open to all content areas 6 through 12?
Because it is driven by them passing the content area exam, and as well as the district level of taking their bachelor's degree and aligning it with the content, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll go on to the next one, financial stability. Are there any concerns? Anything different there than we had
Same.
before? Same concerns, okay. Same comments. Okay, number two, then first, standard one, learner development. Comments there? Any comments?
Exact same issues. Yep.
Okay. Standard two, learning differences.
Same
Yep.
concerns.
Any other concerns there? Okay, Member Robledo?
Just the same concerns from the last app.
All right. Standard three, learning environments.
Would you say that your courses in classroom management, student motivation differ in their approach based on age?
I would, yes. And these are courses that are taken right from our existing programs. And what we've done for these specific courses for both pathways is to tailor them to those candidates who are working within their classroom. So in place of any practicum requirements for our existing courses for our programs, for these you would see that classroom experience. So we're asking them to, through an assignment, complete something done in their own classroom and then speak to that. So yes, it would be specific to their classroom environment.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll go on to the next standard. And that is standard. Where are we on that one? Any other questions, comments?
Are we on Center 4 or still on Center 4?
Standard four.
I think the concerns are the same, but I would only reinforce them by saying, in my experience, just because one is able to pass the subject knowledge chemistry test does not mean that they are very good at being a chemistry teacher. And I would be highly concerned, especially at the secondary level, of a lack of content and how to teach these extremely complicated courses, especially upper level, the chemistries, the calculus, those sorts of things. And so I think what I would need to see is a lot of evidence of how are they going to get that that experience, either from you or from the district, before they walk into these high school classrooms and attempt to teach very, very difficult and advanced material.
Okay.
So I guess I would start by saying that, speaking myself, I probably wouldn't select an applicant that I'm looking to teach calculus or honors chemistry or something like that that wouldn't be the teacher that I would be looking for this program. I would say that I would start a first-year teacher in a general chemistry class, and that they would be going through this program and working through that. So I would say those upper-level classes wouldn't be something that at least our district in particular would be looking for with an applicant going through this program. However, I will say that within our mentoring program and with our district level curriculum coordinators and the workshops that they experience, in particularly within the first semester of the school year, focus a lot on methods and best practices for teaching that. And then they'd get a lot of support from their department chair and their professional learning community team within those methods.
But GCU would stipulate, though, that other district partners may look for teachers in those areas?
We're not seeing really that so much, no. But even
they could.
They could.
Okay.
I think part of the need is certainly why that subject matter expert certificate is so popular.
Right.
But I also think this is an ideal program for that subject matter expert certificate because it does give them the pedagogy. And that is what GCU does best. So we're a college of education. We're not teaching you the content. And so we're driving from that force that you are content prepared, and we're teaching you how to bring it alive.
Right.
And so I would say this program is an ideal program for that subject matter expert certificate candidate, the emergency certified candidate, because it's giving them what they really need is how to teach.
And so I guess to just improve the application, to show exactly where that development would come from, I know it's coming from the district side to some extent, and I know it's probably coming in some of those boot camps and things like that, but like being able to put those specific places where that's happening.
And that's where I think, to your point, I wish I could go back right now and capture those conversations where truly on those chart paper, on that board, where we were doing that shared responsibility, where we were all three in charge of that.
Yeah.
Right.
But we were doing it in very different ways and coming at it from a very different perspective. And so absolutely it's being addressed in professional development just as it is in, classroom engagement and management as much as it is in the district's PLCs and professional development or induction programs that they're doing. But to go back to your point and be able to do that, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Because the districts are taking they're really taking on the load of the content piece, it may be helpful to strengthen the requirements for the lead or mentor teacher because it says it has a general description, and so it would give me more confidence if I knew that the districts were the ones that were taking the lead on that, to indicate that the 3 years that the mentor teachers had been teaching were all in that, would have content alignment, as opposed to, because right now it says it's 3 years of teaching experience, but it would be helpful for it to say 3 years of teaching that content that then their mentee would also be teaching.
Yeah, so we could do that. It would be within a combination of the mentor teacher and the department chair, because our mentor teachers on our campus who are providing that initial induction that are working with them on the actual instruction part might not necessarily be in their content, but we certainly could incorporate in how they're working not only with the mentor teacher on those aspects of it, but also a curriculum lead as far as their department chair that would then be the content specialist.
That would be very helpful if as the districts are taking the lead on that part.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. My concern would be to have it overly restrictive, to have a request that the mentor teacher be teaching the same content area. That some schools may not be able to provide that.
But I will say then, from a GCU perspective, with that supervisor that's coming in and doing that and the coaching from the professional development side, we require that. So even as a former English teacher, I would not go in and observe a math teacher. I mean, it's just, I think to our point, we probably didn't call that out because it's just what we do.
Part of what you do. Got it. All right. Thank you.
Member Robledo, any questions?
No, they've been addressed.
All right, Standard 5, application of content. Any other questions there?
No.
And then what we had before, Member Robledo?
Same as before.
Okay. Standard number 6, assessment.
Same comments.
Same.
Same comments, okay. Number 7,
Same.
planning for instruction.
Same.
Okay. Standard 8, instructional strategies. Any other?
Providing examples of assignments and meaningful learning activities of the different things. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, Standard 9, professional learning and ethical practice.
Same.
Same.
The same.
Okay, Standard 10, leadership and collaboration.
Same.
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 The application and review process.
Same.
Same.
Same. And Daisy, same thing. How about enrollment application forms?
Same.
I
Fine.
think we're all going through, we don't see the content differences at this point.
No.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah.
Anybody
the same.
else have any comments? Then I think we are finished. Are there any other comments or concerns for the rest of the document, since it's all the same?
Catcher, are you able to share our scoring sheets with and all of our comments and things like that?
Madam Chair and Member Aragon, share them with whom?
With GCU, are you able to, like all the comments that I provided on my scoring sheet, are you able to share that with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So.
Yep, absolutely. If you're comfortable with that, then I do that. And usually,
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, I usually do not share those unless you give me the thumbs up, or if you have questions that you'd like to get relayed. But if that's what you'd like, then absolutely.
Yeah, I can give mine.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
Good.
Yeah, it opened
a
in
lot of work.
January.
Are we on recess? Are you doing scores, Catcher?
Yes,
I am. We can stay
You want to stay?
stay live.
that's a good thing. But it's still,
Well, if we're gonna have like conversation, I think you should recess. Because it's being picked up by microphones.
Yep.
I'm going to UVA game tonight.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At 6, so it could be interesting.
Okay, so Madam Chair and members, Member Robledo, are you still with us? I'm sorry to make you keep saying that you're still with us, but I just want to make sure.
I am.
Okay, so Madam Chair and members, for the elementary program, we have a committee score of a 1.41, and then for the secondary program, we have an average score of 1.44. As a reminder, 2.0 is a meets.
Make some motions.
Okay. So, right, I think at this point then we will have a motion and we'll do one. Do we need to do one for each or can we do both in one motion? How would the board prefer it?
Madam Chair and members, yeah, I guess it depends on if the committee wants to recommend the same for both, then we can do it all in one motion.
This time I move to recommend to the State Board of Education that we reject the application.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I think I would like to say from my point that there are a lot of recommendations were made today, and they were very specific to each of the items. And I think to bring the application back with that information would be very, very helpful.
Yeah.
But not discussed during the motion. Just hold on. Those are my comments during the motion. Yeah. Kimberly, just hold on.
And just to clarify that, to reject both the secondary and elementary, and just to make sure the second still stands. Yeah, my discussion on the motion would just be, there's a lot that's missing right now. A lot of links that just need to be fixed, things like that. I think what I would say is that GCU is a known quantity. I know that GCU is not going to be closing up shop tomorrow. This is not some entity that's coming out of state and trying to set up shop here. This is a well-known institution here in Maricopa County. It is an institution that has provided lots of quality educators for many, many years. It's an institution that I've enjoyed working with. However, if I took all of that knowledge away and just looked at this application on its own merits, I just wouldn't feel good about voting to pass it along as it sits right now. It needs a lot of work.
Okay, then. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Daisy, what was your vote?
Aye.
Did we get that? Yeah. Thank you. All right, motion carried. Thank you very much. So, Kimberly.
First of all, thank you so much for your time and your energy. I know as an educator how valuable that is, and how much you get paid for doing this kind of work. So thank you for that, and also for the thorough look. And I don't know, Catcher, at this time what what protocol or what we can do. If able, I would prefer to withdraw the application from the board at this point. And do exactly that and take those recommendations in consideration, and because it's there in terms of what the districts and that we just didn't showcase it. Yep. I thought we had the links, for example, worked out, and obviously we didn't. I think you even tested some of them for us. So I thought we had some of that ironed out so that you could see the assignments. Because that's the other hard part, because I know those assignments exist. I know they were built and designed with a real world in mind, so they could be applicable in the classroom. But it's not showcased. And so you can't make a decision on something that's not showcased. So I'm not sure where we are at that point or what our options are.
Yeah, Madam Chair and members, so, and we could talk about this more offline if you'd like. So right now it's just a recommendation that will go to the board, and then the board will take action probably at the March meeting. Board rule allows, and so part of why I think staff would probably recommend letting that process play out is that the board would officially compile some of the comments that and feedback that the committee has provided, and provide that to the board, and the board would essentially adopt the recommendation or reject or modify that recommendation with those comments. And so that way you have an official record of what the committee and the board feels need to be addressed, and then you can come back to the committee and say, here's all the ways that we addressed it. You could do that, and then you have 60 days after that board action to address those deficiencies. And frankly, there's nothing in rule that precludes you from, on the 61st day, submitting a brand new application. But I think from an applicant standpoint, it gives you something to point back to have two legs to stand on, to say your State Board of Education, your committee and the board has identified these issues officially, and we have addressed them. Whereas if you were to withdraw now, it wouldn't quite carry that same weight, because maybe the board would want to add something, and they have done that before, as something that they'd like the applicant to look at. But we can talk about that more offline.
Right.
If that works.
They just had such rich comments and very valid, and it's hard to make a decision on something. So I also hate for something to go to the board that I feel is there and is not really truly showcasing, especially our district's work.
Sure.
It's one thing for us to say, it's GCU, but I do not want to take something forward that is going to showcase poorly on our school districts. I wouldn't. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
So
we'll
I
talk about it
wouldn't
more
want to
offline.
do that.
That's good. No, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. Okay. Future meeting dates and items for future agendas. Expect to see GCU again.
Absolutely. All right.
Absolutely. You've got tremendous partnerships. These are the bones of a very strong program. And once we get those details fleshed out, then nobody anywhere will be able to question the quality of the program or the equity of decisions that come from the state board for alternative teacher preparation programs. Then, if that's all, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 3:24. Thank you very much.